The air around Buckingham Palace buzzed with the energy of a summer afternoon. Tourists lined the black iron gates, cameras flashing, eager to capture a glimpse of the iconic changing of the guard ceremony. Among them stood a man whose presence, though outwardly unremarkable, would soon disrupt the serenity of the scene. His name was Richard Coleman, a wealthy businessman from New York, known for his arrogance and unchecked entitlement. Having spent his life in the upper echelons of privilege, he believed money could bend the world to his will. Today, intoxicated both by alcohol and a need to impress his equally affluent friends, Richard sought entertainment at the expense of one of the Queen's guards. Standing immobile before the palace was Corporal James Thornton, a man whose discipline had been forged in the fires of real battle. Before donning the famed red tunic and bearskin hat, Thornton had served 2 tours in Afghanistan. The scars on his body, invisible beneath the ceremonial uniform, told stories of survival and sacrifice. Though his role as a palace guard required absolute stillness, his instincts remained razor-sharp, always attuned to the world around him. Richard swaggered forward, the pungent scent of whiskey clinging to him like cheap cologne. "I bet 100 quid this guy won't even flinch," he slurred, his friends laughing in agreement. He circled Thornton like a predator toying with its prey. He started small, mimicking the guard's rigid posture, mock saluting in exaggerated fashion. When this elicited no reaction, he leaned in, his breath hot with liquor. "You're just a statue, aren't you? A glorified mannequin?" No response. Encouraged, Richard's antics escalated. He waved his hand inches from Thornton's face, chuckling as he tried to provoke even a flicker of response. Still, the soldier remained impassive, his training ironclad. A group of tourists nearby murmured in disapproval. A mother ushered her child away, shaking her head. "That man should be ashamed," she muttered. But Richard thrived on attention. The disapproving glances of strangers only fueled his performance. "Come on, mate. What's the point of standing there like a tin soldier if you're not even going to react?" He turned to his friends. "He's a bloody robot, I swear." And then, as if to cement his dominance over the moment, Richard did the unthinkable. He spat. A thick glob of saliva landed on Thornton's polished boot, a defilement of not only his uniform, but his pride and honor. A hushed silence fell over the spectators. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A young girl clutched her father's hand, her eyes wide with confusion. "Why is that man being so mean, Daddy?" she whispered. Thornton's training dictated restraint, but there were limits. In one swift motion, he broke his stillness. The polished wooden butt of his rifle struck the ground with a resounding crack. The sudden movement sent a jolt through the crowd. Richard stumbled backward, his bravado faltering. Thornton turned his head just enough to meet the businessman's eyes, his gaze like steel. "Step away from the guard," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of authority honed in war zones. Richard's face darkened. "Oh, so you can speak?" he sneered, trying to mask his rattled nerves. "What are you going to do? Arrest me?" Thornton didn't move. He didn't have to. A police officer, having witnessed the entire exchange, stepped forward. "That's quite enough," he said sternly. "Sir, I need you to leave the premises immediately." Richard scoffed. "Or what? I've done nothing wrong." The officer crossed his arms. "Spitting on a member of the Queen's Guard is an offense. I can either escort you out, or you can be detained for disorderly conduct." Richard's smirk faltered as he realized the gravity of the situation. His friends, once egging him on, now avoided his gaze. The crowd, emboldened by the presence of law enforcement, murmured their approval. Seeing no way out, Richard raised his hands in mock surrender. All right. No need to get dramatic." He turned to Thornton one last time, his expression twisting into something between defiance and embarrassment. "Enjoy standing there like a puppet, mate." With that, he stumbled off, his once confident gait now awkward and uncertain. The moment he disappeared, a small wave of applause rippled through the gathered onlookers. Thornton remained composed, his posture returning to rigid perfection. But in his chest, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He hadn't broken protocol. He hadn't retaliated with force. Yet, in that single moment, when he chose to break his silence and assert his authority, he had won. Later that evening, as the sun cast long shadows over Buckingham Palace, Thornton stood in the barracks, polishing his boots with careful precision. His fellow guards, having heard of the day's events, exchanged knowing glances. "Did you really make that drunk sod jump out of his skin?" one asked, a smirk tugging at his lips. Thornton shrugged. "He disrespected the uniform. I reminded him why it matters." The barracks erupted in chuckles, a rare break in their usual solemnity. They all knew the weight of their duty, the discipline it took to stand for hours without reaction. But they also knew respect, both given and earned. Meanwhile, across town, Richard nursed a bruised ego in the lounge of his five-star hotel, swirling a glass of whiskey. His friends had long since abandoned him, embarrassed by his behavior. The night's humiliation replayed in his mind, his arrogance giving way to something foreign, perhaps the first flicker of self-reflection. As the days passed, the memory of that moment haunted him. He had faced no repercussions beyond a bruised ego, but the experience lingered. One evening, after scrolling through social media and seeing a video of himself being ridiculed by thousands, he felt something stir. Shame. A week later, Richard found himself back at Buckingham Palace, this time sober and alone. He stood at a respectful distance, watching the guards with new eyes. Their unwavering discipline, their quiet strength. It was something he had mocked, yet now admired. With a deep breath, he approached a nearby officer. "I'd like to apologize to the guard I disrespected," he said, his voice devoid of bravado. The officer studied him before nodding. "I'll pass it along." It wasn't much, but for Richard Coleman, it was a step toward something he never thought he'd value: honor. Thornton never heard the apology directly, but the next time he stood at his post, facing the crowds, he felt something shift within him. Some battles were fought with weapons, others with dignity. And sometimes dignity was the greatest victory of all.